Matt Norlander here with Michigan State Tom Izzo, longtime coach of the Spartans. And as we settle into an 18-school media day, was there a media day year one for you at MSU all those years ago? And, I mean, maybe I'm asking you to pull too far into the memory bank here.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember where it would have been, what it would have entailed all those years ago?
You are kind of way in. I think it was in Chicago. I think we did have one. It was only 10 teams, or was it 12 teams then? 12 teams.
Okay.
And but it wasn't like this. I promise you that. It was a lot smaller than this.
For a coach, now that you have 18 schools, you bring over the 4-Pac-12, I don't know if it does or does not affect how you do your job, how you approach your job. I don't know if the gig now, just in terms of what the composition of the conference is in terms of school size, does it change how you need to do what you need to do?
I don't think so. I mean, it's still, as they say in football, you still got to be able to block and tackle. You still got to rebound and run and do the things that you got to do, not turn the ball over. But it is interesting that travel, nobody knows how that's going to be. It's probably going to be easier for us than it is them.
Yeah.
Meaning the 4 new schools. Getting to new venues. I played in 2 of the venues. I haven't played at Washington. Haven't played at USC. Played at Oregon. Played at UCLA. But I think really good coaches. I know that. They're really good coaches. But I don't think it changes the day-to-day. It's just keeping track of everybody. The scouting. Now you're playing a lot of teams once and not as many twice. And so that's going to entail more scouting, more work, more long nights.
Yeah. With the state of the league being what it is, and now it's 18 schools, and that's the reality here. I'm just curious. While having you're close with all those coaches, were you in favor or not of bloating the conference? Because there are cases for and against. I mean, this is the reality we're in, but I'm curious from a head coach's standpoint. And you and I have talked before, sometimes they don't seem to value your opinion as much as you might want behind the scenes. But were you in favor of what we've seen with the Big Ten and kind of nationally across the country with all this realignment?
Well, let's be clear on one thing. They don't value coaches' opinions on anything in the NCAA or any of that. Now, I love our commissioner, and he wasn't the commissioner when we did it. But,
right.
I will say this. Back when I started, Jim Delaney called me, and he was the commissioner then. He said, I want you to come to Vegas with me, probably because Bobby Knight and Gene Katie wouldn't go. And I was the new guy on the block, and they were starting the Big Ten Network. And I said, is that going to work? Then they started the Big Ten tournament my first year. And I said, is that going to work? And some of those things have worked pretty good. And this, I think, we got ahead of the curve a little bit. You see now some of these conferences scrambling. We stuck to what we wanted to academically and athletically. And what we did do is we brought our brands from coast to coast. And I think there's going to be a value to that, even though we don't see it right now. I think there will be a value to it. So I'm going to just embrace it. I'm sure when I'm flying back from somewhere at 6 in the morning, I'm going to be saying, what the hell, who had this idea? But I think if you look at the big picture, Matt, it's going to benefit our league.
The league now with 18 teams, but I think with more teams coming in, the annual talking point is only going to become more pronounced, and that's you are the most recent national champion to come out of the Big Ten. For our audio audience listening to this on podcasts, Tom gave me a vintage look and response there. The league is 0-9 in title games since then. Could you have possibly imagined when you won the title in 2000 that this drought would ensue? I mean, some of it's luck of the draw with the tournament, right? But I do wonder, as someone who cares so much about your conference and knows how good the coaching has been, if there even is any type of explanation for this other than the tournament can just be a random results generator and the bingo number hasn't come up yet for the Big Ten again.
That's a great question. We've been there 7 other times and haven't been able to crack it. I mean, getting there 7 other times is really good. Not being able to crack it, and we've only been in 1 other championship game. But, I don't know. I say you got to be good enough. You got to be a little lucky. But there's been some good Big Ten teams that haven't made it. I don't think it's because the conference. You know, people try to say, well, the conference is different and this and that. It's more physical. Those days are gone. So I don't really think it's any reason, Matt. I just think that for the most part, a lot of different teams have won games. I remember the other championship game we were in was in '09 against North Carolina. That was the best North Carolina. That was one of the greatest teams I've seen in a Final Four. They were really good. Roy had a hell of a team. They all come back to win it. So sometimes it is the luck of the draw.
You are the model of consistency, 26 consecutive NCAA tournaments. Your fan base, rightfully so, expects to get there every year. But I want to burrow in just a little bit on, for you, what does that entail? Because practically every other school, except obviously Kansas and Gonzaga, has a hiccup for one reason or another. It has not happened with Michigan State. There's been a couple times where you've been on the bubble, but way more often than not, Tom. Obviously, you're sitting there pretty. If you had to give a 10,000-foot analysis on why you're able to continue to do this year after year, what would that be?
You know, I honestly, of course, you had good players, good assistant coaches, but I honestly believe it's part of our culture, and that's what I'm most upset about if we move into a place where everything's transactional instead of the culture mattering, and that it's our former players. We just had a reunion of all of our pros that came back, and when former players talk to current players and put the pressure on them, a player-coach team is always better than a coach-coach team, if you ask me. And I think, fans expect it. That's hard. But former players expect it. And kind of the culture is, I think current players expect to be where the former players have been. And, we went to a Final Four once every 4 years, and that got broken a little bit now, but part of it was COVID. I think we would have been we had a good enough team that year. We were playing our best basketball. But, nobody wanted to be the team that didn't make it. No, nobody wants to be the team that doesn't make it to the NCAA tournament. And I think pressure can sometimes deep six you, but I think pressure can sometimes elevate you.
You've got a fascinating roster. You lost a lot of very familiar players, and yet I know you think you've got genuine depth, like real depth. So for college basketball fans that are just getting back into the swing and starting to gear up and amp up for the season, let's have that roster rundown. Who do you think will be your alpha? Who do you think is going to be the guys that are going to really step up and pop here this season for what obviously sets up as a potential top 25 group?
Yeah, I think it really does, and I think we have experience in some facets. Jaden Akins is the most experienced player we got coming back, but I think we got a lot of improvement. He's going to have to be the alpha, which means he's got to step up a little bit, and he's starting to do that. I think we're looking at that sophomore class now to blossom into what they could be, but it's the guys that have been impressive right now is Cooper, our center. He's been really good, Carson Cooper, and Jackson Kohler has maybe played as well as anybody. He's the kid that broke his foot early in the year, and he missed 2.5 months, and that did hurt us. No excuses because everybody's got them, but those two guys, and then I think we're getting a lot of play out of Trey Holloman.
Yeah,
he's been very good. He was good at times last year. We got a freshman or two. Jace Richardson has been very good, and we got a transfer too. We got Frankie Fiddler has been a very good transfer for us, and Shaman Zapola is a 7-footer who is, I think, really going to help us.
This time of year, every coach loves to say, I like my team, I like my team. I need some coach on the record. Do you like your team right now? Are you willing to say you don't like your team in October? Can you go against the grain, Tom? If I actually went in and dropped in on a practice 2 days from now, am I going to see a coach that likes his team?
If you would have dropped in on a practice 2 days ago, you would have found one that didn't like his team. Okay, so there's no question what you're saying is true. I'm more of a realist than I like my team at times. I don't like the consistency yet, but that's why we got 4 more weeks of practice. This is a critical time right now. I like the pieces. I like the pieces a lot. I like the potential. I like the potential a lot. I do not like my team every day because we don't have a consistent alpha. We're getting there. Jaden should be the main one. I think Book's a guy that has incredible skills, and he's getting more consistent, but he's got a ways to go yet. Our point guard, Jeremy Fears and Jace Richardson, and of course Troy Holloman, who can play both, are, I think, all playing well. But like Jeremy, he missed 90% of last year. Right. So there still are some unknowns, but I do like the pieces. I do like the way they practice. I do like our camaraderie. And I think that's another thing everybody will say, well, we have good chemistry. What does that mean? I think we have really good chemistry, and I'm crazy enough to say, if we didn't, I'd say we need a lot of work on that.
Okay.
We don't need a lot of work on that. We need a lot of work on finding our alpha and maybe getting a little more consistent.
I want to close on something that you were willing to talk on record with me about last year when I asked you basically, when might retirement be coming, and you said, I'm not going to retire this season. I appreciate you sticking to your word by the way. I don't know when it might be coming or not, but I wonder if we could reset that conversation real quick, and also how much of it, if at all, but I got to figure some part of you, the competitor in you, is chasing that second national championship because you've gotten so close so many times. I know you do it for a lot of reasons. I know more than any time, as you've told me multiple times, you have a true emotional investment in players to a level that you understand people might be cynical about, but I know it comes from an earnest place there. But how much does the second national title and trying to get that drive you and keep you going in this environment?
I think it's a variety of things. Retirement, right now, I'm actually feeling healthier. I had my hip replaced this year in April, and I feel better than I have in 5 years. So okay. I look at good friends of mine, Nick Saban, I think was 74. He's got time in, and, of course, Mike and Roy and Boeheim, and I look at those guys, and I know this, I won't stay too long. What does that mean? We could lose, we could win. I won't stay when I'm not doing my job. Now, is it as much fun as it used to be? There are some problems now, and you and I have talked about it. But I'm still making sure I do my job, and I think that's critical. I do have a dream of getting back to another Final Four and winning a second national championship. It'd be a third for our school. That'd put us in a different level. That is a goal. But maybe of all the goals, for me, I have two. Michigan State, like everybody, we went through a tough time a few years ago. Then we went through COVID, which everybody went through. And I'd like to get that back running. The university means a lot to me. The athletic department means a lot to me. And I'd like to see college basketball. I hope we get the guardrails to keep it human, and that it's not the wild, wild west, which I think it's becoming.
Do you think it's, last one, do you think it is bending back around to what you'd hope it would be, or do you think the sport is still arcing in a way that is against the trends of what you think is best for the interest for the players in the sport overall?
Boy, I'm glad you said it that way, and I appreciate you saying it that way. Not the best for me, best for the players, because, when players are transferring all over, that seems that it could be best for that one player, but what about the player that he's transferring to, and all of a sudden that guy thought he was starting, now he's out. So this thing works both ways. I think it's in the works. I'm not ready to say that we're home yet. We'll find out, as we go. I think our commissioner's done a good job. I think when you go around, and I know you've talked to a million coaches, if somebody talked to you off the record, they would tell you that it's not where it needs to be. And I think that is 98% of the coaches. And so hopefully it will be. I love the sport I'm in. I question right now which way our profession's going, but I love the players. I love the practices. I love the games. I love the fall-to-roll around college sports. And I hope we adjust, take care of the players, but keep some guardrails that make it fair for everybody.
The one and only Tom Izzo. Appreciate your time, Tom. Good luck this season. We'll see you down the way.
Thanks, Matt.